Hello potential YouTube friends, welcome to my first attempt at making a podcast and welcome to my bedroom. I don't have anywhere fancy to film, obviously. My name is Keely and you can expect complete rookie YouTube energy as I discuss hot topics that I find interesting with the knowledge I've gained over the years as a personal trainer and a general enthusiasm and love for biology and sports science. Today I want to talk about fasting, so what I think about it, what the science actually says, and I'm doing that so you can come then to your own conclusion about whether it's the right path for you. I will be talking about it from a female perspective because I am one, and sorry, it's not funny, why am I laughing? And by now we are hopefully all aware that only around 3 to 4% of medical trials and 7 to 9% of sports science studies include only women. With 30 to 40% of sports science studies including any women at all, because we're such mysterious, complicated creatures. So with biological differences between men and women being apparent, yet still largely under-researched, it can be more difficult to distinguish between evidence-based advice and fact. So I'd love to make a podcast on biological differences next between men and women, because I personally find it fascinating. So comment, do that thing, comment if you'd like to hear more about that. Firstly, I want to address the psychosocial standpoint and its potential relationship with disordered eating. So I was born in the 90s and everyone was always on a diet. Diet culture was strong. Printed magazines were really popular in the 2000s and they were full of crash diet blueprints and fat shaming celebrities that weren't even overweight. And me and my friends, we were all very much a product of our own environment. And we were, bragging about how little we'd eaten that day. We'd be grabbing the fat on our bellies and, feeling ashamed of maybe eating too much or carrying a bit of puppy fat, whatever, at such a young age. So flipping back to 2026, after a really brief cultural movement towards body positivity, I can see the same patterns happening again. Just when I thought the message of being strong and not skinny had been driven home, the rise of weight loss drugs, heavily edited social media, and, I believe, fasting seems to be making that message of food scarcity louder once again. And I'm not happy about it. It just breaks my heart to hear young women especially talk about how they need to diet or work off their meals. And they have learned the same way we did from hearing others say it, and feeling pressured from what they see around them. So my beef with fasting, I'm not saying that I am right, it's just my personal opinion, is that it fits with a very age-old belief that women must go hungry to be smaller, because apparently that is a marker of health and beauty. The concept worries me because I can see how it could instill food phobia and disordered eating in women and girls. So why is fasting on the radar again? There is some logic to it. So in theory, fasting makes sense. It has been proven among men and women, that insulin sensitivity is highest in the morning and then it tapers off as the day goes on. We have a lot of studies that confirm that blood glucose stays elevated for longer if a meal is consumed at 6 p.m. compared to eating that same meal at 8 a.m. What is not proven is that that longer period of elevated blood glucose translates to increased fat storage. Does it just mean that it takes longer for glucose to be taken up by the liver and skeletal muscle? Not only that, but glucose can be taken up via different metabolic pathways too, which do not rely on insulin at all. Our bodies are very smart and they are continuously working to achieve equilibrium, which is homeostasis. So with that in mind, surely our bodies will not allow us to store precious energy as fat that easily. To inform you as best as I can, we need to get a bit more into the science and see what current studies actually say about fasting. My big question is, when calories are matched in both groups, do we see more weight loss in those that have fasted? I have looked into studies that contain a substantial number of female participants only, and only those where food has been provided in a controlled setting to make sure that the information we look at is as relevant and accurate as possible. It's really important to disregard any studies where the food has not been provided in a controlled setting, because errors can occur when participants self-report food. Food can be measured incorrectly, entries missed, or foods the participant thinks they shouldn't be eating just left out. I have also left out any studies where the food was provided but not in a controlled setting too. So for example, the participant was sent food through the post or whatever, carrier pigeon, because they don't necessarily have to eat that food that they've been given to have at home either. So that is my criteria. What does the evidence currently say then? Give us the details, Keely. A lot of the early research into time-restricted eating was conducted on mice, and the results were promising in mice. The ones that were fasted were less likely to get sick and obese, in short. But their metabolism and circadian biology is completely different to humans. That's why animal testing is never perfectly transferable. So, can you believe I could only find one study which matched my criteria? I apologise for the pronunciation of the author's name, it's going to be wrong. Marutha conducted a trial for 12 weeks. Sorry, I started reading it like I was reading a book to my nephew then. Marutha conducted a trial for 12 weeks. It included 41 adults, of which 93% were women. They had a mix of obesity, controlled diabetes, and pre-diabetes. If eating later in the day automatically meant more fat storage, then this study would have been a pretty good opportunity to see it. That is because the group following just a calorie deficit, they ate more than 50% of their calorie allowance after 5 p.m, whereas the time restricted group ate between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m, and they consumed 80% of their total calorie allowance before 1 p.m, and they fasted for 14 hours. So, guess what? What did we find? The study found no statistically significant weight loss between these two groups. So just be careful when you're listening to advice online. As of right now, the theory that this normal reduction in insulin sensitivity later in the day automatically means more fat storage is just that. It is just a theory and it is unproven. Fasting can be a useful strategy in reducing total calorie intake, potentially without calorie counting. So I can see the benefit there. What we do know and what is proven is that women experience issues with osteoporosis and reduced muscle mass as we age. So it's in my opinion that surely we should not be depriving ourselves of food for weight loss, but our focus should be on a high protein diet and resistance training. So, what might fasting be useful for? If you're into your health podcasts, you might have heard of cellular autophagy. So all of the cells in your body have little worker bees inside called organelles, and they do things like create energy and make more cells. It's usually stated that fasting for 16 hours plus is proven to recycle some of these little workers that aren't performing correctly. But again, there is no fasting deadline that is scientifically proven. We just know that autophagy increases when nutrients are scarce in the body. Your body actually carries out cellular autophagy continuously anyway, especially during exercise. I wouldn't worry about the health of your cells, because once again, there is no evidence that fasting to increase rates of autophagy can have any impact on, say, for example, a misbehaving cancer cell that won't die. There is research going on in regards to that, but it's still cooking, it's not ready yet. I think it's really important to point out that losing body fat does not have to be the goal at all. So where has it gotten us so far? Secret eating, food shame, a lack of love for ourselves. Maybe if we focused on things like sleep, getting fresh air and being strong, not small, we could finally break this cycle of food phobia that started way before the 90s. Chase the dragon of building healthier habits one step at a time, not weight loss. Feeding yourself is a much more loving act than starvation, and food is one of our most basic needs, and you deserve to meet that without shame. Thank you for listening to my podcast. I'll wrap it up here because I'm conscious of the 15-minute time limit I have. So if you could like and just subscribe, that would be nice, because then I don't have to worry about that time limit. Maybe I can post some longer videos. So I'll end this how I end my WhatsApp voice notes. Thank you, bye.